Hey there, I'm Ben from Team Panic, and I'm here with Seth from Just Cuz Robotics. So I am in America at NHRL right now, and while I've got a chance with Seth, we're going to do a question and answer thing. You guys have sent in some questions for me to ask Seth. Seth's audience have sent in questions for him to ask me. If you want to see that video, it is on Seth's channel right now. There'll be a link down below somewhere for you guys to find that. So let's jump into this, yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. The first question I have here is 1 pounders, the American ant weights, are very common. Have you got any plans to build a kit for the 1 pound league?
So no, there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, as people who watch my channel for a while know, basically I basically run a business called Just Cuz Robotics LLC. That is like my primary source of income now. I quit my job as an engineer to do that full time. So I primarily am a product business that sells robot parts, and I pretty much only sell parts for the 3 pound weight class. So I have a whole ecosystem of parts that work with 3 pound beetle weights and basically nothing that works with 1 pound ant weights. There is another company that is a very close competitor of mine, but primarily focuses on the ant weight market. He already has really good drive motors and speed controllers for those. We've basically decided to not step on each other's toes as much as possible. And if he wants to do a 1 pound kit, he's much better equipped to do that since he already has his whole ecosystem built up for those.
Right,
and of course, Fingertech's Viper kits are like the go-to recommendation for anyone who wants to get into combat robots in the US and Canada already, because they're really good and pretty cheap already. And it would be really hard to compete directly in the 1 pound class with the Viper, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, Fingertech is a big company to try and compete with as basically solo operation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which of your robots is your favorite out of all the ones that you've built?
It's like picking your favorite child, I guess.
It is a little bit, yeah.
I like all of them for different reasons. I mean, I feel like I have to stay with Division forever because it's like my entire brand at this point. It was like what my YouTube channel started with in 2019.
Yeah.
And I've been updating it slowly and competing with it for 4 years. And I don't have any plans to stop iterating on it, but I kept adding robots to my fleet every year, so I'm not going to compete with it as frequently because I'm mixing and matching between them. But
yeah,
I think, Division has always and will always like have a soft spot in my heart as being like, while it wasn't my first combat robot because I built a couple in college, I actually started with a 30 pound robot, which was horrible.
Yeah, that's a big class to start.
A metal
yeah.
box named Karma with a linear actuator lifter that took like 8 seconds to raise
Oh,
like 90
wow.
degrees. It was very bad. But it got destroyed by Jameson Goes Megatron at Motorama. But somehow it went like 2 and 2.
That's impressive, really, yeah.
But yeah, like after building Karma, I built another 30 called Conduit. It was a 30 Sportsman. And then I also designed Top Kill, which is a 3 pound overhead saw. And if you look at pictures of Top Kill and look at pictures of Division version 1, it's like replace the saw arm with Division's fake uprights and spinner.
Yeah.
It's like basically the same robot.
I mean, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start with a base you already know works and iterate.
Yeah.
So
I've been doing this for a while, and Division was like kind of how I learned how to do everything. I started out with just using like a bandsaw to cut out parts that I put paper templates on titanium sheets that I bought on eBay or whatever. And I've gotten to the point where now I like laser cuts and everything with second consent. I operate my own CNC mill at a makerspace to mill some parts. I'll get PCBWay to machine parts for me or other companies when needed.
yeah.
Basically, I've used every form of manufacturing under the sun to make changes to Division at this point. So
That's a cool way of doing it. And like, do you still, this is a personal question, do you still have the original Division chassis, or have you kind of,
is it sound horrible? But actually, I sold it. I sold both. I basically, because I've always built a ton of spares, but every time I build a new robot, I build like more than 2 copies of it worth of spares. So I've actually sold it, I think, technically twice.
Right, okay,
I sold like a not functioning robot at all, but just like a chassis that was assembled to some kid who was a huge fan of my channel, and his grandmother emailed me and was like, we would love to get this as a birthday present for him.
That's a cool...
And then I think I sold one of like the original blades with the original blue paint to another person who was a super fan or something, but like I had, and then Division version 2 was a similar story. Ironically, actually, currently is a operating robot under the name of Redback in Australia. I sold version 2
okay,
to a
that's
builder
interesting.
in Australia.
Do you know whereabouts in Australia?
I'm not want to say Adelaide, but I don't remember for sure.
Okay, I can't remember it being in Adelaide, so, but yeah,
But
that's interesting.
I have had assembled versions of it in my trophy case at various times for a long time, and then eventually when I decided to do the version 2, and I just had the version 1 sitting around, I was like, does anyone want this? And with version 3, I actually had a functioning version 2 and a crap ton of spare parts. And I was like, does anyone want to buy basically Division minus a couple electronics? And I got an offer from this guy in Australia. It was reasonable. And I was like, all right, even though it costs like $100 to ship it to you, if you're willing to pay for it.
It is hard to ship to Australia. That is just a universal truth. So, a question that I think we've probably got an answer to at this point, but I'm going to do this anyway. If you had a fight between SSP and Division, which one would you drive and who would control the other one as a dream matchup? Anybody you want.
I have thought about this quite a bit actually. So the problem is that Division is basically impossible for anyone that isn't me to drive.
Right, okay.
Because the gyro on the weapon is completely insane to deal with.
So you need that practice.
I kind of have to drive it for it to be a fair fight.
Okay,
But I literally already fought an SSP kit with Division at the last event that I was at.
I was going to say, that was in your fight report. Oh, you lost that, right. Yeah.
I got beat by like a 10 or 12-year-old, I think. So I think.
Hey, look, some of those 10 and 12-year-olds can drive really well, so.
But yeah, Division has been outclassed by my later creations, unfortunately.
Yeah. If you had a dream match, like, if you had a dream person to drive an SSP against you, though, who would you want as your, like...
Probably Jameson Go.
Yeah.
I'd love to get revenge for that first loss, technically my second loss to Karma. The funny part was Karma, I was actually not even driving. I just designed it and built it because I was doing it with a team of people. So I only drove Karma in one fight against a bot called Ratcatcher, I think from the University of Georgia or something, and it got annihilated.
Oh, right.
My first fight that I actually drove the bot in was a loss to a different team. And the next time that Ratcatcher showed up at Motorama, they had 2 lipo fires in like both of their fights, and it was
yikes. That's a lot of lipo fires for one event. Like, one lipo fire is a lot of lipo fires for one event. So
I would like to say that they got karma by KOing Karma.
So are you planning on a 12-pound or 30-pound robot to bring to NHRL?
So, kind of. First of all, I already did a 12-pound that I brought to NHRL, but it fought as a 12 sportsman, and NHRL has done away with the 12 sportsman class.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Originally, I built Draconid to be full combat for Motorama. I brought it to Motorama, and it only fought wedges there.
Oh, right, okay.
Full combat. But the drivetrain was bad, and I tried to upgrade it a bit for NHRL, but basically I used round belts, which you can use any center-to-center distance and just stretch them.
Yeah.
I tried to switch into timing belts, but there was no timing belt on existence.
Oh, that's the exact,
because I had four-wheel drive, and it was from the center to the front and back. There's literally no way I could make one combination of lengths of belts with different size pulleys work. It just had awful belt tension. It was just bad. And I ended up, again, selling it to another, like a university team that wanted to buy it.
Okay.
So that and all of its spare parts are gone. And I had been intending to use some of that money to build a new 12-pound bot that was heavily inspired by Retrograde. But I've never really gotten around to it. I bought some parts for it. So I'm hoping maybe when I actually find the time to do that. It's become increasingly hard with running a business full time.
Yeah, I could fully understand that.
And
time.
Also quite expensive. Like, Draconid was built on a similar budget to Division because I literally bought a bunch of raw aluminum stock. I spent 36 hours, because I'm Jewish, I spent 36 hours over Christmas break because I don't have to celebrate Christmas in the machine shop in the makerspace, machining billet aluminum parts for this robot.
That's a long time to be working on just one robot straight, so, yeah.
It was pretty brutal, and like a third of the parts were scrapped because it was like my first real project on the Tormach CNC.
Oh,
I
right.
was able to get 1.5-ish robots worth of parts together. But that was also partly why I didn't compete with it in full combat again, was just because I didn't have enough parts if it got trapped to put an entire set of robots together.
Yeah, that is important, especially for something like this where it's just massive, so... Yeah. This one is a bit cheeky. The commenter asked when I can expect my SSP kit, because they really want to see me turn it into a multi-brain dual undercutter with squeaky hammers. So I don't know how that would possibly work.
I don't think that an SSP is the correct base to make any form of multi-brain off of.
I think you're right on that. A four-wheel drive multi-brain would be difficult, especially with the wheels in line like that. So
when I was planning out subtraction, there was a brief time before then that I was like, can you put an undercutter on an SSP? The problem is there's like no ground clearance.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Your blade has to be like 1 millimeter between the bottom and the top if it's a 3 millimeter thick blade. Which,
Yeah.
there's just no way.
No, especially the floors here get annihilated that quickly that a 1 mil clearance and you're going to be tearing the floor up for most of the day, I reckon.
One
So
person interestingly compared subtraction to crippling depression, which is an undercutter but has an option to run it upside down with a big blade on top that Robert Cowan had built.
yeah, I'm familiar.
I think there
Yeah.
are some similarities maybe, but there was like no real direct inspiration. It was literally just like, I have SSP, how do I add a big spinny thing to it?
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, I feel like at every point in robot building, somebody's like, I've got a really cool design. Can I get a bigger spinner on it? Like, it's just a rite of passage, really.
Yeah.
So, and also I feel like, especially when you're selling a kit, you need to show that the kit can be turned into a monster. So,
Of course, I have not necessarily considered that yet, but I think that it goes like at this event, there were like 8 or 9 SSP kits, half of which had been converted into different weapon systems. There's a vertical spinner one, there's 2 overhead saws, and like there's a whole bunch of random things that people have done with them already. So.
yeah, I mean, I saw a bunch myself. In fact, I fought one with a squeaky hammer. Yeah, so it's cool to see them like around the place and getting people into the sport, really.
Yeah.
So
that was kind of the whole goal with the SSP kit, is just to be an easy, way to cross the barrier of entry to get into 3 pounds. Because there's already like the Viper kit for the 1 pound.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of kits for 150 gram, even in the US. And the 3 pound class, though, especially at NHRL where you need an active weapon, there wasn't an option that was like safe without a spinner that I would be comfortable giving to like a 10-year-old. And now we've seen 10-year-old literally almost be Jameson Go with Silent X with one of my kits.
yeah, that's crazy. And that's a great point on the spinners too. Like personally, I've said this on my channel a bunch of times, but your first robot, don't run a spinner. Everybody wants to run a spinner for the first robot, but just getting some stick time, getting this like the run through of safeties and stuff with a robot that doesn't have a weapon that can take your finger off is invaluable, I personally think. So
even like I said, Division being technically like my fourth robot, I still did many stupid dangerous things that every first time builder does when they have a spinner on the robot for the first time that I would not recommend anyone to. All my future videos where I show how to build a test box and how to actually properly safety your robot if you're ever going to attempt something like this.
Yeah, test boxes, I'll back up the test box point. Test boxes, even if it's just a drawer with some Lexan slapped on top of it, I mean, for smaller robots, 150 grams and so on, I mean, you're pushing it in with the Beetle a little bit on that, I reckon, but even something like that is way, way better than spinning up a robot on your kitchen table or on your floor or something.
Or on your balcony, like I may have done.
Yeah, definitely not outside where the robot can get away from you. Like that's
not ideal.
No, definitely not. What was the robot or BattleBot that got you into liking the sport?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to remember. I think it was probably not necessarily one robot, but like basically like the 2015 reboot of BattleBots in the United States. Mm-hmm. The TV show coming back on air was like why I was like in college as a sophomore being like, we should start a combat robotics team at the school. Because there wasn't one. And myself, I met another friend who had come from California. He competed at Robo Games, which was still
nice.
Operating in the years that
it was,
wasn't.
yeah.
And he was like, I want to build a big robot. He had previously tried to do by himself like some insect classes and a 60-pound bot.
Okay,
so we decided we'd do the 30-pound Karma because he had experience with the 60, but it didn't quite work out. And we were both broke college students.
Of course, yeah.
We were going to fly a 60-pound robot to the other side of the country, let alone be able to afford to build one in the first place.
I mean, yeah, flying a 60-pound robot is difficult. Flying 30 is possible. But yeah, it's interesting though you mentioned the 2015 reboot, because that's why I am in the sport as well, is that reboot happened and I was like, oh, I should apply. I got a bunch of my college friends together and we were going to apply, and then the holidays happened, everybody spread to different corners of the country, and I went, oh, I need to film all of you to have an application video, and that whole fell apart. And then I was like, is there something in Australia that I can, oh, there's a club, yes, I'm gonna start here, so.
Oh yeah, didn't you like show up with Gemini, one of the BattleBots seasons too?
I did, yeah, so that was in 2019. It was literally like, I had been keen on BattleBots forever, well, at least since the start of the reboot. Oh, I mean, definitely forever, but then reignited with the 2015 reboot. And I'd wanted to get on, and then in 2019, I was just like, I will take anything. Like, if anybody needs help, I will fly myself there, like, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be on a team. And of course, because all the teams are American, lots of the times when a team was like, hey, we need a person to help, it was like 2 a.m. for me. And by the time I woke up, 18 people had put their hands up and that slot had been filled already. And it's thanks to David Small of Team Small Robots. Yeah. Because I told him that I was looking for a BattleBots team, and at midday my time, he sent me a message like, hey, Gemini's put up a thing and nobody's really posted about it yet. And I'm like, right, I'm in there. And I like immediately sent them a message, and very thankfully I got on the team. So
thank him, he's literally right there.
He is wandering back and forth right now. So he'll probably see this video in the future and be like, oh, I should have just come and said hi, but. All right, I think we've got a couple more, and then we'll wrap it up there. So one that you asked me that I'm gonna ask right back to you. Why did you start your YouTube channel, and what keeps you putting videos out?
So, I started my YouTube channel for a very similar reason to you. I think a little bit differently, because I started out with like having graduated from college with a mechanical engineering degree. Mm-hmm. So I basically was like already familiar with CAD design and stuff, but I realized that I was like on the Combat Robotics Facebook groups and some forums that people were in, trying to build a robot. And people kept asking the same questions over and over and over.
There is a lot of that, yeah.
And, like, I feel like a good, like, 70% of those questions were about, like, wiring or electronics. So, like, the first video on my channel, I think, is, like, an event recap from Division version 2.0. And I, like, show off the robot, and I think my follow-up video to that was like, here are all of the electronics in my robot, exactly how I chose each component, and like what they all do, to try and be a copy pasta that I could just throw in as a forum response for all those people asking the same question. And I kind of ended up just ballooning from there, just doing a bunch of tutorials trying to answer all the most common questions builders had.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first like 2 years of my YouTube channel were either, here is me building a thing and the design decisions that went into that thing, here's a tutorial for this question that keeps coming up over and over again, and here's an event recap from my competition with Division, pretty much always was Division at that time, at whatever competition I was at. And I've competed with Division at a ton of competitions all over the East Coast of the US and now in San Francisco, so.
Yeah, nice. And so why do you keep putting videos out?
So, I think, obviously, because I run a business now, part of it is that it's advertising for my business, but also, in large part, it's still a hobby for me to make YouTube videos. Like, I feel like it's not necessary. If I look at the actual analytics for my, like, website, my store, like, I don't get a majority of the traffic by any means from, like, YouTube directly.
Right,
but
yeah.
I think the reputation, the trust that I've built up from having a YouTube channel is one of the reasons that my business exists. And I still feel the need to give back to the community however I can, by continuing to produce tutorials and other content that people both enjoy, and that hopefully, like, is even just the entertaining event recaps and stuff are something that somebody who's never heard of combat robots stumble upon on YouTube. They find out about the sport and think it's amazing, and then they get inspired to build their own robots. Yeah,
I mean, and YouTube is great for like randomly popping videos into people's feeds, so.
My like super secret goal with Just Cuz Robotics, the business and the YouTube channel, is basically to inspire the next generation of engineers, scientists, thinkers, STEM kids especially, though obviously the majority of my audience is not necessarily like under 18, still like I get tons of parents whose kids will find the videos or they'll come up to me when I come to events like this and they're like, thank you so much for showing us that this existed, showing us that Norwalk existed, or just showing us that Robot Combat existed. And because like my son is super into this, and maybe he wasn't necessarily that interested in math and science in school, but when he found out that he could apply it to building a robot, he was
suddenly,
like,
yeah,
this is like the coolest thing ever, and every kid wants to do it when they find out it's a thing.
Exactly, and yeah, it's a very, like, I've heard that myself as well, and yeah, it's so good when that type of thing happens, and it's great to get kids involved in this stuff, and having that hands-on experience really helps, and especially with, you can learn so much so quickly by having robots break in a sport like this, that it's really good for that.
I'm really hopeful for what NHRL is doing with the NHRL Rookie Academy. I'm going to try and help them to the best capacity that I can with that as well, though I'm not allowed to disclose anything about it because nothing's set in stone yet. But keep an eye out on NHRL's website for the Rookie Academy. I think you can still register for it right now, and they're finalizing a bunch of stuff with it still, but I think that'll also be a great way for any, especially kids, but anybody with any degree of prior robotic experience, including zero, to figure out and go from zero to building your first robot.
That is going to be really cool. I was really excited when I heard that they were doing that, and if they do a second one, I would like to try and like get involved in some way, because that would be really, really great. So
yeah, definitely.
So our final question here is Bloodsport going to stay white, or can we expect it to be black again once bots and stuff is no longer out of black paint?
So the reason that Bloodsport was white at Proving Grounds was because we decided to compete with Bloodsport as a 150-gram sumo bot at the Toronto Bot Brawl event in Canada.
Oh, okay.
So basically, one of my jobs on the team has been to try and spec out a new brushless drive system for the robot. And we had two chassis built up. The black one, the original one, was using the same exact drive that we'd used at BattleBots before. It was using mag motor brush drive. Mm-hmm. And then we painted the white one, which we called Pass Sport, and the black one we called Bad Sport, to go over to Canada.
Yeah.
And basically, just without the head assembly of the weapon, it was about 150 pounds. And the Pass Sport was running the brushless drive. And we basically had both of them fight, and like both of them did really well at the sumo competition. I think both got into like the top 4, and like
hey, congrats!
The brushed one actually did better and got like the final 2.
Oh right, okay.
Just in the second place. But like everyone on the BNS team got to take turns driving it. I driving
That's
one of
cool.
the 2. It was pretty fun. But yeah, basically the idea was to have Passport be the test bed for the brushless drive, and I guess. We ended up kind of liking how it looked. And
I gotta say, it looks pretty cool.
And because we already had the brushless drive in that chassis, we just left the white when we decided to bring it to Proving Grounds. So we only had that one like Bloodsport chassis running with us at Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
I think we have 3. Basically, we have like 3 Bloodsport chassis in various degrees of serviceability in total, and I think that. Just that one is white. I could be wrong. We might have painted the second one, but I think just one of them is the white one. So yeah, I'm honestly not sure if we're going to keep it that way. We very well might for bringing it back to BattleBots for hopefully a season 8 if that actually exists, which we still don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, pretty much it was kind of funny because like usually when you make a radical design change to your robot, like when we added the head to Bloodsport, like you look at the Reddit threads and it was like there were like lots of people who were like, oh, it's just How to Train Your Dragon. Or like, this is really stupid, it looks so goofy, why would you add a stupid cartoon head to it? Or like, this is super badass, it looks like Shadow the Hedgehog from Sonic. Or like, there's like a whole bunch of people saying random things, but like, it was kind of mixed.
Yeah.
When we posted pictures of the white on Reddit, everyone was like, white Bloodsport looks freaking sick. Like,
it does though,
everyone loved it, so we might just have to keep it.
It is great. So does that mean that you were running brushless for Proving Ground? Was that also a test of that brushless system there?
So unfortunately at Toronto, we were not allowed to use LiPo batteries. So we were running a LiPo batteries, and it was like half the voltage.
Right, and then the lower draw too, right?
Yeah, between Toronto and Proving Grounds, we like doubled the battery voltage. We went to LiPos, and we also, I worked with Justin to design a custom encoder, Hall effect encoders to run on the motors. So we were running essentially censored, but instead of using Hall effect sensors, like 3 Hall sensors built into the motor, we actually were using an AS5047 magnetic and Hall effect encoder emulating Hall effect sensors, because VESC has built-in Hall effect sensor support that seems to be pretty reliable. And that seemed to work quite nicely. Justin still is driving the robot, and he still thought that it wasn't quite up to the standards he likes, but especially because we added magnets to the bot to run on proving grounds, having the extra power that brushless can put down is really important, because with brushed, if you just like added more downforce and you don't get wheel slip, then you're probably motor limited. But when you just add a ton of power, eventually you become traction limited, and then you start to benefit from adding extra downforce with the magnets. So we're seeing the benefits of having the added acceleration that we can get from adding magnets and the power of the brushless, and we also save a few pounds of weight as a bonus.
That is handy, yeah.
So we're probably going to make some tweaks to it before we just send it for season 8 with brushless, but I think we're probably going to keep brushless. We're probably going to still tweak it a little bit.
I mean, I feel like we've seen through the last couple of years that brushless drive is one of those things that you really do need to tweak and tune and get right before you can run it fully, because teams have run into trouble. So best of luck to you with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the end of our questions for today. So as mentioned, actually, I will say there is a couple of questions in here that have been asking for you to intro yourself in my intro style. However, we're leaving that for the video on Seth's channel, so if you want to see that, jump on over to Seth's channel. As mentioned, there'll be a link in the description down below where he'll be asking me questions. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all we've got for you today. So thanks for watching, and make sure if you like this video, click like. If you haven't subscribed already and you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified when more videos come out.
and of course, if you're not subscribed to Seth, jump on over there and subscribe to him as well. All right, that's going to be it for this one. See you all later.
Bye.